The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Talkin Cowboys. Streaming live from the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
Pollard streaks in. Touchdown. Parsons has sacked it. Prescott keeps it, and he bangs it in for the touchdown.
And now your hosts, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Harris, John Machota, and Kyle Yeomans.
It's officially the regular season. Game week is here. Week 1 is here. And so is the full slate of Dallas Cowboys podcast as we kick things off with Talkin Cowboys starting at 9 a.m. Central Time every weekday through the regular season as the Dallas Cowboys get ready to face the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football this week. It's a Talkin' Tuesday, and we're glad you're with us here on DallasCowboys.com and the various Cowboys streaming platforms. Alongside Isaiah Stanback, John Machota, Nick Harris, I'm Kyle Yeomans, the usual crew that'll be here along for the ride throughout the 2023 season.
That's right.
Gentlemen, it's good to be back. And, I mean, we've been back. We got back from training camp.
The season is freaking here, Kyle.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It feels different in here. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about, both up and both down for the Cowboys, at least over the last weekend and week of work. But, wow, I mean, hey, week 1's here. You excited, Nick? This is your first go at it, too.
Yeah. I'm definitely excited. Not only is it my first go at it, but, I feel pretty good about where this team is at and what it can accomplish. I'm really excited about getting this going for sure.
John, you ready to get back to the grind of things?
Yeah, for me, it's all about the offense, just because we didn't get to see it in any of the preseason games. You didn't get to see him practice against another team. So there's a lot of, unpredictability to it that I'm really excited about, just because we know this is one of the best teams in the NFC. But it's always like, okay, well, you fell short in the playoffs. How do you take that next step? What is going to be the thing that gets you to the next level? And it very well could be their defense. And we can look back on this and be like, it was kind of overblown talking all about the offense. This team's about the defense now or whatever. But there's just so much that I want to see from the offense that remains my number one thing that has got me probably more excited for the start of this season than any other since I've covered the team.
So you're excited about the potential there on offense. And I think the identity to this team, Isaiah, what would you say the identity is? Is it just defense? It's just all defense. There's no real specific to it, or is it pass rush or levels or what would you? I want you to get specific with how it goes.
Let's get detailed then. You want to get in the nitty gritty. Okay.
It's week 1. It's no more generalities here.
I think teams fear, because that's what I think that we need to lean towards when we start talking about what the makeup of this team is. Teams fear the pass rush. When you think about the Dallas Cowboys, you fear their pass rush. And I think that's the first thing you need to go to whenever you face an opponent. What do we fear? Right? That's the first thing we need to attack. Right? We need to find a solution for that, and then we can start working our way through everything else. But if you don't have a solution for Dallas's pass rush, you don't stand a chance.
Especially with what they added on the back end with Gilmore. Another year for Bland, another year for Diggs, another year for that secondary to be together. It all plays into, like, they would love for teams to just sit back and have to throw all day, And so obviously teams aren't going to do that. I expect the Giants to come out and try and run the ball and try and win that way. And obviously that's why you go out and draft a Mozzie Smith and you re-sign Jonathan Hankins. So that'll be the key is to stop the run, because if they do that, everything else will take care of itself.
It kind of goes back to what we've talked about previously on this show, both the last year and then through the offseason, is if you give this pass rush another half second, the numbers could explode. I mean, and that's it. That's all it takes on average. If you give them another half second to get to the quarterback, give them maybe even a little bit more than that. You give them a full second, and all of a sudden Micah Parsons could be Defensive Player of the Year. That secondary never gave them that time, or at least a good enough amount of time for them to really explode. Now you look at it and say this secondary could do so.
1,000%. Micah Parsons said during training camp that the addition of Stephon Gilmore is going to give him at least 3 more sacks.
I like it.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. But, with this pass rush, I'm very curious to see how they come out, just the defensive front. I'm very curious to see how they come out against the run, because that's going to be the biggest indicator of how successful this defense is, in my opinion. We know the pass rush is going to be fine. We know they're going to be great in coverage. The one weakness that they had last year, has that been solved? Has it been worked on enough to the fact to where it's not a weakness anymore? I liked how they finished the season with Hankins last year. Can they rotate with Hankins and Mozzie throughout the season and it be healthy and it be, efficient? That's what I'm going to be looking for. And they have a really tough stretch to start the season. So we're going to find out really early on. Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, James Conner, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, the list goes down. It's not going to get any easier until your bye week.
Yeah, when we're talking about identity and fearing the strength of certain teams, John, when you look at New York coming up this week, what do you fear about New York?
I mean, their defensive tackles are real good.
Yeah.
That certainly could be an issue there when you have, Tyler Biadasz, and then you have an injury to Tyler Smith with a hamstring. So it doesn't sound like it'll be something that might keep him out. But
let's talk about that a little bit, because as of 20 minutes ago, an update posted on DallasCowboys.com, added caution being taken with Tyler Smith this week as the Cowboys prepare to open their season. Former first-round pick will undergo a precautionary MRI on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So
you don't love your offensive line depth. So
No.
because of that,
Didn't we just talk about this?
yeah.
yeah,
But the interior,
a couple times actually.
Few times.
Dag nabbit.
Yeah.
Dag nabbit. That's the one position group that you can't afford an injury.
I think
And
I blame
arguably
this
the one
on
player.
we talked about one position particular,
Yeah.
guard.
You. Is this our fault?
Maybe.
Did we talk about
We
this too
said
much?
you can move. You could tackle. Something can happen at the tackle position, right? Hopefully not center, but guard. We're like guard. There's no room for error. Like there's no room at all.
We got to start knocking on wood. Right
Yeah,
here.
Beam, where's the wood in this new studio?
I think it's right here. I
We gotta,
think
okay,
this
is
is-
this
yeah,
it?
yeah.
I guess that's the
we
that's
go.
the closest thing. Okay.
Hollow.
but that group up front with Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams.
They're nasty.
Yeah.
They're nasty. Then we know about the NFC East, right? The NFC East gets into the trenches. That's what the NFC East has been known for. That is the identity of the East, right? Well, these guys, they continue to be strong, right? And the New York Giants, they have a two-headed monster in there. Just much like the Dallas Cowboys have a two-headed monster on the outside at cornerback and at defensive end, they have a two-headed monster at the defensive tackle position, and that is where their question mark is now risen because of the question mark with Tyler. So it's scary.
It doesn't get any better with Kayvon Thibodeau on the outside as well.
No, I
it
mean-
doesn't get any.
But
Okay, we don't need to keep bringing these
I
guys
mean,
up. Okay.
I mean, but
saying.
but I feel good about our tackles, right?
Yeah.
Like I really do, and I feel good about about Dallas's offensive line as a whole. However, as we mentioned last week, you can't afford an injury to the interior offensive line because you don't have a solid, confident option to roll in there and say, okay, guess what? You can fill that void. If something was to happen to the tackle, we already knew what the game plan was, right? Cupid shuffle, you bump Tyler Smith out, boom, 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 everybody fits in. We're good. Now what?
Yeah.
That's the thing too with hamstrings. You just don't want it to linger. So that's probably why you want the MRI, because he could sit there and say after that he's feeling better and everything's fine, but you want to make sure that you take every possible, plan of attack on that, because you don't want it to be something that you're dealing with all season long.
And
limiting it.
hammies suck because in a controlled environment, they're on the way back from mending an injury, you can feel pretty good, right? A little strength test, you're good. Okay, a little hamstring curl, you can isolate it. Okay, but when it comes to the quick twitch and the change of directions and all those things, and obviously I don't know exactly how he got injured, exactly what caused it, what movement he was doing.
Were you out there, Nick? Were you able to see that portion of practice?
So the offensive line was on the very
far
far
side.
side, and we just kind of caught him walking in right towards the end of the media session yesterday, and then Jim Maurer was right. I almost said Joe Maurer. Jim Maurer was coming in right behind him. So
Minnesota Twins.
yeah,
great
shout
catcher.
out. Also a great football player.
Yeah. I think because for those of you at home, the media doesn't get to watch the entirety of practice anymore. So even if these injuries pop up in practice, it's hard to see unless you're one on the field and two in the right spot, because they really limit you to one side of the field. So whenever you're looking across the side, you couldn't even really see anything like that.
Yeah, Jerry Jones did just say on the fan about 30 minutes ago, we'll get an MRI on that today, but we felt better about that after we assessed it after practice. You always are concerned initially. Nothing we've evaluated keeps him out Sunday at this point. So,
It's good.
I
He
guess
did say Monday, though.
that's good optimism. He did say Monday. I put Sunday in quotation because
So did I,
in a
so did I,
bracket.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, because this is what he meant.
Yeah. I think he said it because it's a Sunday night game and he probably has it
Yeah.
thinking of Monday night type thing.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Either way, those D tackles are going to be licking their
Yeah.
chops.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to see the injury report.
Absolutely.
There's
They're
going to
gonna
be a
go right
name right
after
there. And then
Absolutely.
they're
You're
going
gonna
to, Tyler
test it.
Smith will be tested in week one. No doubt about it.
From
whether
your-
he's healthy or not.
From your standpoint, if you going into this knowing that we might have a tough time at handling their defensive tackles, how do you combat that? What do you have to do? Like, what do you have to do offensively to kind of bring in some extra protection there to make sure that you're good?
Well, first, this offense is made to stop a pass rush. Okay, so that's first off. Dak's not going to be back there holding the ball. I don't care what defensive front you're facing. So that's the positive thing about this offense, and I think that was a intentional change from last year based upon some of the struggles that Dak had. Right, they wanted to get the ball out of his hand quicker, easier decisions. Let's not hold it. Let's not force him to have to make these decisions where it possibly can have some interceptions. So I think they are literally blanketing him in that way, protection-wise. But in terms of the running game, get these guys moving. Get them moving. Get down on it. Bring the ball right at Thibodeau. Freaking A. We know you can pass rush. Well, we're going to run this ball. Tyron Smith going to come at you. Okay. The heavy pocket. Terence Steele going to come at you. Okay. We're going to run this ball right down your face mask and force you to stop us. And then the big boys in the middle, we're going to see exactly what your win is looking like and how that conditioning worked this offseason for you.
Speaking of the running game, one thing I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I want to see it first drive, read option. I want it back. I want to see Dak back out.
That was slow. That was slow Thibodeau down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
it'll slow all those
to
guys
keep
down.
him off balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen that in the last couple of years since his injury. And I know he could still do it. They tested it a little bit during training camp.
Correct.
Put it on the field. I want to see that in action.
The other thing that's been missing is in terms of being effective for the last few years is really the screen game with the running backs. And I just, they got to find a way to get that work. Now, of course, it probably looked great because when Zeke started out in his career, you're talking one of the best backs in the league. You had one of the best offensive lines in the league. So, those two things factor together. But I think of like Zeke's biggest highlights with the Cowboys. And if I'm doing like a top 10 or 15, like 3 or 4 are some of the screens he took he took to the house or just had big gains on. And that really has been missing the last few years. So I'm wondering if they're able to kind of get that back.
And I think you definitely see that because that's one of the ways you slow down really good defensive tackles. You slow them down by screen, keeping them off guard, giving them more things that they have to worry about and be concerned about.
Do you need a mobile and healthy guard to pull on those screens most of the time, though?
No, you're a jerk, Kyle.
I'm just asking. That's part of it. That's part of the screen game. You need your interior linemen to be healthy and mobile. And for the most part, those guys are good at doing so. Tyler Smith's better in a phone booth. We talked about that already. I should say he's better at the tackle spot than he is in a phone booth, is what I meant to say. He's better outside. He's better in space. But when he's healthy, that's the case.
You can switch things up with the offensive scheme. Your guard and your center can interchange their responsibilities on some of those screen plays. It's just going to take a little bit more work, though.
You could also throw in an offset tight end or an offset fullback.
Heavy, yeah.
Fullback?
Offset fullback.
Do you want to say that a little bit louder for the people in the back?
Fullback.
Okay. Hunter Lipke. He's on the team for a reason.
It's a bit at this point.
Before you started talking about Hunter Lipke, I was about to say, where's our blocking tight end as well? Because, the guys on the roster are pass catchers, at least at their strength. Maybe Jake Ferguson is your leading blocker in terms of a tight end right now.
I can see McCune being called up
from the practice squad. That's a good point.
McCune and C.J. Goodwin, I think, would probably be the two favorites as of right now to get moved
Brock
up.
Hoffman.
Yeah, that's true, too. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
But if you bring up offensive linemen, don't you get 3? Don't you get
That's a good
3?
question.
I got to look at the rules.
Yeah.
It's the regular season again.
Yeah, and it changes every year.
Got to refresh. Yeah, I feel like I've got to refresh. Because I think if you do bring up an offensive lineman, you get 3 elevations. But I don't know about that for sure.
I'm telling you, that rule book will beat you down.
Yeah.
I was just spent a lot of time reading that whole third quarterback rule the other day.
I was about to say, we got an email.
A lot of detail on that thing.
There was an email that was like, here, just for those who are worried or confused about it, the NFL sends out an entire media release on, here's what the rule is.
There's a lot there
initially, but you really don't get it. And so here it is. And so, that was some weekend reading, no doubt about it. Give us a call, 888-855-2297. You can also hit up the text line at 817-290-3298. We're going to talk to Cowboys Nation starting in the next segment. Before we get to that segment, let's talk about some good news. Let's talk about some positive things here in week 1. Cowboys lock up Terence Steele on the outside. Extension for the former undrafted right tackle who continues to show that he is willing and able to grow in this offense. And coming off of an injury, he looked good. He's still pushing in the right direction. And, man, he's been a cornerstone for the right side of that offensive line for the last couple years when he is healthy. But, Nick, what did you think about the extension and what ended up being the new contract for Terence Steele?
Yeah, the new contract, 5 years, $86.2 million. I believe it had has the potential of going up north of 91 million. So very much deserved. Somebody put out a tweet yesterday. I think it was Todd Archer, looking at the undrafted free agents that the Cowboys have picked up and the overall money that they've earned throughout their career. And if Terence Steele ends up earning all of that 86.2 million, he'll only be behind Tony Romo. So really deserved for Terence Steele. Really good story. Undrafted free agent that was thrown into the fire almost immediately and survived and came out on the other side a better player. And then, had a more adversity to come over with this ACL injury coming off of last year. Did everything he possibly could in being diligent in that recovery, working with a director of rehabilitation, Britt Brown. And, I asked him, I was like, do you think the recovery had something to do with, getting this contract done before the season? Because you would think an ACL injury, okay, let's see him back on the field before we give him this deal. And they gave it to him. I think that just speaks to his work ethic, his diligence, and their confidence in what he can be still.
He's super easy to root for. I mean,
absolutely.
He's just a great dude. Mike McCarthy talked about how he was here every single day, and it's always the same time and all that. And when I asked him about it, he said it's because he has a military background, so his family always was like that. So, and then just going from 2020 being an undrafted guy to get to this place, it's just so easy to root for him, and you want it to go well because for someone like me that there's a lot of you're just covering the team and comparing to other things you've seen. I mean, it's very easy to bring up. The last time that they've done this, where they've signed a bunch of guys before the season, was 2019, and none of those went well. So there's that part of you. And when I mean that, I'm talking about the Zeke extension, the Lyle Collins, the Jalen Smith. I mean, it was all within like a couple of weeks that all those were done. And so that's the last time where they did something like this. So I would think just law of averages, because of all those that didn't work out, I would think that they deserve some good fortune in this thing. But man, like I said, I can't say enough. Like, I root for anybody getting money, but there's just some guys more than others that you're just like, man, I'm really happy that he was able to get this. And I think for me, a lot of it is, one, he's a good dude, but then two, just the undrafted thing is just always cool to see that happen because of how much emphasis everyone always puts on the draft. And every year it gets more and more, but it just shows you can still find some guys that can be big pieces that you don't draft.
I like T. Steele. I like him. I've been joking around with him as of late about every time I run into him, I told him he needs to go ahead and dread his hair up. So it costs about $150 to do so. So I think he has enough to get it dreaded now. But no,
That'll be the next thing you tell him in the lunchroom later.
I always tell him that every time I see him. So everything that you guys have touched on, I mean, he's a great dude. He has a work ethic out of this world. He gained my respect last year at Camp Kyle when we were calling the live practice against Denver. And things got a little chippy. There was
Randy Gregory.
Randy Gregory was starting things on the sideline and really causing a stir. He wasn't even practicing, but he was really kind of sparking up fights on the side.
As Randy does.
And Dak Prescott was kind of standing by himself at one portion of the practice. And we were sitting up on the hill, and guys, I don't think guys were just they weren't paying attention, right? They were watching practice, but they didn't notice that Dak was by himself, and the entire defense of Denver was pretty much like surrounding Dak and talking mess to him. Well, there was one gentleman who went over there and was not having it, and it was T. Steele. And from that moment, though, it's like your little brother, right? Like you feel the vibe that your little brother needs some support, so you kind of look over there, and he beelined over there and pretty much threw everybody out the way, threw everybody out the club like Jazzy Jeff on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and got his quarterback back over to where he, to safety, in so many words. And from that point forward, he had my respect because I knew that he had that dog in him. As nice of a guy as he is, he's kind of a gentle giant walking around, real soft spoken. But when it comes down to it, he got that dog in him, and that there's differences. Like you talk about Deion Sanders, his team went in this past weekend, and the patches that they have on their chest, that D for dog, that needs to go to T. Steele because he is one of the guys on his team.
It was funny too, as we were talking to him yesterday for about 6 or 7 minutes outside the locker room, just seeing guys that would walk by and just yelling stuff like Michael Gallup, Zach Martin, yelling out, calling him big money and
big
stuff
money,
like that. You can just tell like everyone's really happy for him because he obviously puts the work in. And that was the best way to describe it. He does come off as the gentle giant. That's the perfect way to describe him. But then on Sundays, that's certainly not who he is.
Well, I think one of the early defining moments for the Mike McCarthy era was in Washington back in 2020 when Andy Dalton got hit as he was going down on the slide.
Correct.
And nobody was there to back him up.
Nope.
Nobody really was there, and that was the early indication of, okay, what does this team really have? Well, there's something going on here. There's a culture problem to a certain extent at that point in the season, and things weren't going well at that point either. I mean, of course, Dak Prescott goes down. You have the rotating door at quarterback, and then who was one of the first guys to step up after that learning moment? There were a couple guys, but Terence Steele was in that mix as a rookie. As an undrafted rookie, he was in that mix as somebody that stepped up very quickly. Maybe not on that specific play, but once he saw it, and he said, okay, next time, that's not cool.
Never going to happen again.
Never going to happen again. And he's been there. And so I'm glad you brought up the Denver story, because that's certainly something that stuck in my mind as well. And I think it all stems back from that initial moment when he was a rookie. He was learning from those guys and said, yeah, okay, not going to happen to my quarterback, not going to happen to my guys ever again. And now it won't for quite some time, because he's locked up for the next 5 years. So happy for T. Still, happy for his work ethic and everything he's earned to this point.
And the guaranteed money. That boy got 50.
He did.
Guaranteed.
He got some guarantees.
I will say, though, even with that, I know you look at these numbers and you're just like, man, that's a lot of money. But if he continues to ascend and play at the level that he's been on, you'll look back on that contract and it'll be like, wow, that's a bargain. Yeah, for just because nice.
Can we give it up for the front office right now? We talked about how aggressive the front office has been. They just continue to be aggressive, and I love it. We talked about them last week, saying I hope they keep that energy. Sure, right? And they have kept that energy, and I hope they just keep the foot to the pedal.
I want them to sign CD, and
it's going to happen.
We'll make it work.
That'll happen. I honestly, obviously, I don't have any insight up there, but let me put that out there before I make this statement. I have a feeling that it is a race right now to try to get CD done before Justin Jefferson.
Has to be.
I agree.
So
it has to be.
Yeah,
I believe that Justin Jefferson said he needs that deal done before the season kicks off.
Hey, CD, you got time today?
Got a week.
Can you make it up to the
Countdown.
4-3 here at the Star and make things work?
Something may happen before a week's in.
They did ask him on the fan today, Jerry Jones. They said, once the season starts, does that kind of close off negotiations? You just want to focus on the season? He said, absolutely any time we can get that deal done. So it could happen at any point. And he was referring to both Dak and CD there. So
for Terence Steele and Zach Martin getting those things taken care of, like, just look at the depth behind them. Like, to me, that you have to look at what else is there. It's not like you have a couple of guys you're just like, no, they can hold out if they want, or we can possibly go to the those are so important. I mean, even Jerry saying this morning on the radio about how, he talked about how much he liked the depth and how much he likes the current roster. But then he brought up himself the offensive line depth, as in that would be the only concern. But then he points out, what NFL team doesn't have that right now? And so that's the other part of the Terence Steele, the Zach Martin thing. It's like not just the depth here; it's the how many quality offensive linemen can you get, like even in the entire league. Yeah. And that's one of those spots. It just seems like it's becoming harder and harder to project exactly what's going to carry over from the college game to the pro game, to the point where you obviously see a lot of swings and misses in the first round. Not here, and there's nothing they've done better than draft first round offensive linemen, of course. But the other part is then also. There's a part of me that when I hear the Terence Steele deal, the first thing I think of is just like, how does this guy go undrafted? Yeah. So there still has to be a part of where there's still some things that you just don't quite know for sure, that it's tough to predict,
Yeah, he slipped through the cracks. Credit to the front office for getting him done and getting him in the building, and then, of course, seeing the way that he's grown and developed since then. We've got to take our first break. Well, when we come back, we're taking calls from Talkin Cowboys Nation, 888-855-2297. Give us a ring. Chris Beam will answer the phone in the back when we come back with more Talkin Cowboys.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Black Rifle Coffee Company serves premium coffee to people who love America. When you drink Black Rifle Coffee, you are directly supporting veterans, law enforcement, and first responders in your community. Black Rifle's expert roasters love coffee almost as much as Texas loves football, so it makes sense that America's Coffee partnered with America's team. Go online at blackriflecoffee.com and fuel up with the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. That's blackriflecoffee.com to fuel up today.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't-stop-banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
This portion of Talkin Cowboys is brought to you by Quaker Oats, a super trusted superfood. Quaker Oats, the official oatmeal sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Back here with John Machota, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Harris, Chris Beam in the back. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Every Tuesday, we will take your phone calls. It's a Talkin Tuesday, as always, and the traditions continue as we head into the regular season. Give us a call, 888-855-2297. Let's start things off with Brian in Iowa. Brian, you're back on Talkin Cowboys. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, it's going really good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. What's on your mind?
Well, I got a few things. I got one thing about Dak and then another thing about the defense. First of all, with Dak, how do you guys feel if Dak has a great season and he is in the MVP running I think he kind of was in 2020 before the ankle season with he was setting the passing record, I believe. I think he can get back to that form with this offense scheme and the players around him. And with the defense, how many total sacks do you think the Cowboys will get with Micah Parsons and the rest of the defense? And you guys have a great day, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course, Brian. Appreciate the call as always. John, I'll start with you on the Dak Prescott question. Where do you think the ceiling is for Dak is kind of what it sounded like Brian was talking about, because prior to Week 6 in 2021, in the calf injury that he sustained on that final pass against the Patriots, he was the MVP frontrunner, and it's hard to argue at that point. Statistically, play-wise, win-wise, he was there. Do you think he can get back to that? Because we haven't necessarily seen it since.
He can. I don't think that they really need him to, though. And the reason I say that is because the way this season starts is reminding me. Now, these are not apples to apples, but it reminds me a little bit of 2014 because there was a little bit of that. We're going to take some more off Tony Romo's plate. We're going to have DeMarco Murray, be kind of the focal back, and it just changed a little bit about the offense. And just before that, leading up to it, you felt like there was a period of time there where Tony had to play really well and win these games, and DeMarco kind of took something off of his plate, and it ended up leading to one of Tony's, if not Tony's, best seasons. And so with this team, I think the running game will be good. I do not think it'll be DeMarco Murray 2014 good, but it's the defense now. So because of how loaded this defense is, he doesn't have to be that guy that he was, back then throwing as much as he was. And I do think that there could be some hiccups early in the season just with like a new offense and that. But the thing I keep going back to, and I know it's a ways by in the past, and I know it's a different team, but man, you just look at those numbers that Brett Favre put up the year before Mike McCarthy took over in Green Bay. I mean, we're beating down 15 interceptions like it's the worst thing we've ever heard. Brett Favre threw 29 the year before Mike McCarthy became head coach. And then it cut it down. McCarthy's first year, I believe it was around 15, and then the second year got it down to 12. And that's Brett Favre, who, is, has one of the most talented arms that's ever been in the game and has probably attempted more bad throws than anybody ever has in the game just because of his ability.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to, as a first-time head coach, be able to get a guy like Brett Favre that was as established as he was at that point to, be more, I wouldn't say conservative, but just be more, taking care of the ball better. That to me It's like, did Tony need to put up the best numbers ever to say 2014 might be his best season? No, but the trickle down was that if everything else fell into place, he ended up having that. And I believe if Dak takes care of the ball, everything else falls into place. They win more games, and if the Cowboys are winning games, he's going to be in all those conversations. I mean, that's how it is with, you can talk about it in college football with the Heisman Trophy. You know, at the quarterback position, it's the same way in the NFL. If your team is rolling, your quarterback is going to be in that conversation.
Well said.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a lot, about how this offense is constructed around Dak. It's put into quote-unquote Dak's language. Does that lead to an MVP conversation? I lean no. Just because of what you said. They're going to have to lean on the running game. They're going to have to lean on the defense to help them out in some areas as well. So you just need Dak to be Dak. You don't need Dak to be MVP. You know, I think if they can work that around, then it's a successful season. I think everyone would rather have a successful season than a Dak MVP season.
Sure, no doubt. The only thing I was going to add on that, though, on the MVP thing, Dak's coming off of arguably his worst season because of the turnovers. I feel better about him being in the MVP conversation this year than I would have last season at this time about Jalen Hurts. So things go up and down real fast in this league.
Interesting.
Nobody expected Jalen Hurts to have that season.
It's a great
Maybe
point.
Jalen Hurts did. Maybe there's some people in Philadelphia's front office. Maybe Nick Sirianni did. But most people did not think like he was going to take it to that level. It's not like that was his second season or we just hadn't had a... There was a decent sample size on him, and obviously there was a lot of good pieces around him, but he took his game to another level that I don't think most people were expecting. So you don't really know for sure.
And he did so by being efficient.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the case with Jalen Hurts, and now that's what you're asking Dak to be. You're not asking Dak to be over the top. You're asking him to be efficient all the way through and making things simple on him so that way he can lead things like Jalen Hurts did.
Yeah, I think you guys...
You're muted. Go ahead. I think your knee.
It's going to be John next episode. It was
Yeah.
me last episode.
There you go.
I'm just going to pull your mic over today.
Sorry, I'm growing. Yeah, I think you guys hit it. I mean, everybody's expectations of Dak are everybody's looking for the big plays. I feel like in the fan world, that's not what Coach McCarthy's looking for. Coach McCarthy's looking for that high efficiency, high probability of completion rate, and that's what he's looking for. He doesn't care if it's 14 yards or 5 yards. He wants it manageable in terms of his ability to deliver a solid, accurate ball. You're going to still have your deep shots, but those deep shots are going to come off of play action. So this is going to be a very simplified, chill offense. And to you guys' point, with a successful team comes a successful MVP run for most quarterbacks, most teams. It's just a quarterback league. But this is not going to be 40 passes a game, Dak. So people just need to get that out of their heads.
Yeah.
I don't think you should want that either.
No.
Like if you look at those box scores at the end of the games, if you miss the game by some chance, I don't think you really want to see a bunch of those games like that. Because before, the ankle injury, there were a lot of games like that where he was playing like that. And you really felt like, well, if he doesn't play like this, then they're not going to win. Well, he doesn't have to play like that now.
Yeah, and I think that's what you want. Like you said, and if it is that sort of 40 pass attempts, you want it to be short completions. Maybe it's because you're methodical on offense. If the box score does end up ballooning like that, you want it to be efficient work on the offense as opposed to let's just throw the ball to throw the ball. All right, let's go to Jim in Pasadena.
You don't want to get to the sack total thing?
Oh, I forgot about that. We'll get Jim first. Let's get Jim out of the way. Jim, what's going on?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. All right, I want to play a game. If Parsons, Smith, and Odigizua and Lawrence are your starting four on the D-line, who are your next four, and are those next four better than any of the other D-lines in the league?
That's really tough for me to know.
Appreciate the call, Jim, as always.
One of our national NFL writers at The Athletic, Robert Mays, goes to a bunch of different training camps. Mm-hmm. And so when he came to the Cowboys camp, we always do like a pod. I think he came the second week. And when we talked about the defensive ends, he said he thinks that they have the best defensive end rotation in the entire league. And I lean on him a lot more because, most of my time is dedicated to following this team. I just wouldn't feel comfortable sitting there and saying, then again, there's a lot of people nationally that love to talk about that stuff, and I don't think that they have really seen anything either. But
call them out, John.
It would be just tough for me to sit there and definitively say, no, this is the best. I will say I don't think Mozzie Smith is in the ones there. I would have him with the twos. I think it's so Hankins and Odigizua are your two starting defensive tackles with Lawrence, Parsons on the outside, and then your twos in the middle would be Mozzie and Neville Gallimore. Now, this is where it gets interesting because I would have Sam Williams in there because I think he's got the highest upside.
Mm-hmm.
But Dorrance Armstrong's there, Dante Fowler, like those are guys that have proven it more. But Sam Williams for me is the wild card because Sam Williams could be 5 sacks, Sam Williams could be 12 sacks, and either way, I would be like, yeah, I could kind of see that happening.
Yeah.
So
I think I would go the same way with the starters: D-Law, Hankins right now, Osa, Parsons. And then the second level, and I think this goes to Jim's point. You go to the second level, and then you've got Mozzie Smith, who, of course, is a first-round defensive tackle. Sam Williams, who's a second-round defensive tackle. Neville Gallimore, who's a third-round defensive tackle. I said defensive tackle. I meant edge rusher for Sam Williams, but you know what I mean. Dorrance Armstrong there as well. I think, man, that's tough between Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler. That's where I kind of have this hold up because I think I'm there with you. I think Sam Williams is that other edge rusher. What do you think, Isaiah?
I think they're interchangeable. I really do. I think,
but that's not the game.
I know, but it depends on the situation.
Play the game.
It depends on the situation, man. If I'm just simply just trying to get back there for sacks, then yeah, Sam Williams. If it's a third and medium, I'm probably using Dorrance.
I'm just looking at these sack numbers. They're so wild. 20.
I mean, Dallas had 54 last year, correct?
Yes. They did.
Philly had the most. Philly had 70, I believe.
Yeah, no, you're right on. It's just funny because I went back the last few years and then I go to 2020.
Oh.
2020, 31 sacks the Cowboys had.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny about last year, though, too, is like, I know Philly clearly had the most, like you said, 70. But there was a time, like first half of the season, where like, I mean, they were neck and neck with the Cowboys, and then Philly pulled away towards the back end. So for me, there's no reason they shouldn't be in that conversation all the way to the end of the season. But that also brings up a point that I'm just interested to see. Like, how do they do on that second half of the season? There were times where Micah Parsons wasn't as effective getting after the quarterback a little bit later in the season. It was part of the reason he went this offseason about bulking up a little bit more for that, that stretch run and being a little bit healthier then. So that's, to me, where it's got to be. And then to how Nick points out, the way that this schedule sets up, it's a lot of running backs early, a lot more passing later. A lot more passing would lead to more sacks. So maybe that happens in the second half. That's the key.
This is my prediction. If Dallas can be in the top 15 in rush defense, they will lead the league in sacks.
I like that.
Okay. Because they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
I like that.
I like it as well. And I think I agree with you. I think it goes back to what we talked about right at the jump, too, of having this secondary affect the pass rush and having this secondary. This is a better secondary than Dallas has had in quite some time.
Is this the best secondary in the league?
No. I'm not
it's
ready.
It's got to be in the conversation.
But it's in the conversation, which is saying something because they have never been in the conversation.
It's the best cornerback duo in the league. I'm ready to say that. I think I'm ready to say that.
Let me see the regular season Stephon Gilmore first. I love training camp hype as much as anybody, but let me see it first for that. I think they're really, really good. Don't get me wrong. And they're in the conversation, even if they aren't the answer to that conversation. But with that secondary, I think it opens up the possibilities. Look at Philadelphia. The reason why they had 70 sacks is because they had depth on the defensive line and they had depth in the secondary. Dallas had depth on the defensive line. They didn't necessarily have any depth in the secondary, especially in the back half of the season whenever Philadelphia did end up pulling away. So with that being said, 70 sacks for Philly last year, 54 for Dallas. Let's go back to Brian's question. How many sacks, Nick, do you think the Cowboys have in 2023?
I think with the addition of Stephon Gilmore, because I've seen regular season Stephon Gilmore. I know what he can bring to the table.
I agree.
I think they can get to 60.
60.
I think they can get to 60.
Disappointing
If everyone stays
number.
healthy, that's key.
That's low. I'm just
Low?
kidding. I don't know. I'd probably say like
over
63.
under 60. I think it's a healthy over under at 60.
I would say over.
Over.
Yeah, over by a little bit. I'd say 63 if everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, I'm going to take over because I think they're good enough to average 4 a game. That would be 68. And I did that on my calculator. There's no chance I would have done that in my head. There's no chance I did that in my head. I'm a complete idiot when it comes to math. So that was all the calculator. And so that puts Philly last year a little over 4 a game. I think this team is capable of doing 4 a game. But a big part of that will be Micah Parsons. He's had 13, I think, and then 13 and a half. I think he's poised to, especially if he can keep it going on that back half of the season, he could be a 16, 17, 18 sack guy.
Yeah. Could he get, if he keeps the train moving the way that he did in the first 2/3 of the season last year, could he get to 20?
Yeah, if that happened, though, to me, a key piece in that would be just they'd have to have outstanding health on defense.
Yeah.
Because if that happens, then there's so many other guys that will wear on a defense that I feel like to get to 20, and I might not be talking factually here, so you guys can call me out if you want, but I find it hard to believe if you get to 20 sacks that they're all just like 20, just hard-earned. I just got every bit of that. Like, there's got to be some gimmies that are there, some layups where you're just like, hey, I benefit from this. Also, when I'm saying that, I'm thinking significantly it's on one play, and it's that the Brett Favre going down when Michael Strahan got the record. And Michael Strahan obviously deserves it. I mean, he's outstanding, but I just always think of that play, like where you're just like, nope, you got it, I'm down.
Have fun. Okay. What do you think? Over, under 60 sacks for the Cowboys defense. Should everybody stay healthy? That's a big key in this.
Yeah, if they have a solid rush defense, they'll hit 62. That's my number.
62. Okay. There you go. So lots of high expectations for the defense, as you would anticipate going into the year. But I think if they get less than 60, either health is a big factor in it, or it's just a lack of execution because the talent is there.
When you said about the running, that's because you feel like if they can stop the run, then teams will just be forced to throw. You have more opportunities?
Yes, so that's one portion of it, right? But also you have to go to the other side of the ball, and the offense has to be able to put up points. Mm-hmm. So the offense is dragging, and they're not putting up points effectively. Right now, we're not looking for them to be Kellen Moore, sky it out type offense, right? But they need to be able to have a 14-point lead in order to take teams out of their game plan.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a 10, 14-point lead, now you could start taking teams out of their game plan. As long as teams can remain in their game plan, then my approach to this defense is running the ball.
Yeah, when he says that, the game I always think of is last year against Minnesota, like how Mike on that first series just set the tone. He was coming on that backside and sacked Cousins, and I'll just always remember it because I love AT&T Stadium, but my favorite thing about Minnesota is it's an open press box, and just to be able to actually hear all that sound, it was just wild because I'll never forget how Micah was coming off the backside, and Cousins doesn't see him, but you can just hear the crowd like wanting to yell to him like, move! He's closing in like you're not going to make this.
He's coming!
It was such a tone setter for the rest of that game, and that's like the most complete game I've seen, and a lot of it has to do with exactly what you said. Yeah. It just completely, because that's the thing, a lot of people hate on Kirk Cousins. Minnesota was rolling at that time, and the way that they just from the very beginning defensively,
they were 8-1, right?
I think so. Yeah. They had coming off that game when they beat the Bills. That was
tight
a wild game.
Overtime.
Yeah, like they were rolling. So it's not like it's this. Oh well, I just know a lot of Cowboys fans feel like, well, they always beat the Vikings, but it's like no, they've beaten some good Vikings. But that game, when you said that's the first one I thought of because that changed up everything. The way they set the tone early with that.
It really did. All right, we got to take our second break. When we come back, we'll hit a couple more texts and we'll get you ready for some previews coming later in the week as the Cowboys take on the Giants on Sunday Night Football. When we return with more Talkin Cowboys.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag & Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag & Turf, the official Ag & Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Are you ready to take coffee off your grocery list forever? Black Rifle Coffee Club is here to help. As a coffee club member, you'll get your favorite coffees roasted, packaged, and shipped to your door free of charge on your preferred schedule. Set it, forget it, and never run low on coffee again. Members also get exclusive deals on coffee, products, and discounts from partner brands. Ease your mind and let Black Rifle worry about your coffee supply. Go to blackriflecoffee.com to join the coffee club today.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
The final segment of Talking Cowboys is brought to you by Invisalign, the official smile of the Dallas Cowboys. Alongside Isaiah Stanback, John Machota, Nick Harris, Chris Beam in the back, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Glad you're with us. All right, Isaiah, in that early segment, we were talking about offensive line. We were talking about Tyler Smith. Our guy Kent from La Cruces, New Mexico, he wanted to call you out.
Okay, go ahead.
So he texted into the Cowboys text line, 817-290-3298. He said, I don't understand how you are so concerned with potentially losing a guard, but say you're okay with losing a tackle when it requires moving a guard. I know what you were trying to say. I want you to get a chance to defend yourself here. You're not okay with losing anybody on that offensive line, right?
No, not okay at all. And obviously, what I was getting at, yes, you have to still rotate a new guard in if you lose a tackle. However, losing a tackle, at least you have a formidable backup that you feel confident about. That's what I was getting at. The guard position solely does not have a strong suitor that you feel confident about on this roster, regardless if that means if you lost a tackle, you got to bump one in. It doesn't matter. I don't care how you get to it. You don't feel good about your guards. And we know that. The front office knows that. I assume that they were working on that. I assume that this probably scares the crap out of them, and this is kind of a woohoo, hello moment. Okay, little, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I addressed that. If you have to rotate that guard position at all, it's a bad situation for the Dallas Cowboys currently, where the development exists for their backups.
Yeah,
I always wonder how much PTSD is with Cowboys fans from that Chaz Green, Adrian Claiborne game.
I know. I think about that significantly,
just because it just stood out so much that I feel like anytime there's an offensive line injury and you think about, like, to your point when you were thinking, when you mentioned the backup guards, I'm thinking, okay, who is it? Like, who would I feel? And I'm thinking TJ Bass right now.
That's my thought.
But there's a part of you when you're thinking about it, and of course that's guard, and Chaz Green was playing on the outside, but it just is one of those things where you're just like, you just start fearing like, well, then everything's gonna fall apart. Where I don't know, like I have a lot of confidence in Mike McCarthy when there's chaos. Like he's really impressed me over the last couple of years, like whether it be Dak going down or in some situations where
he's handled some situations.
Yeah. So if they're to be without,
he's had plenty of them too.
Yeah, like I give him a lot of credit for his ability in those type of situations. That he'll have a plan for this type of thing. And the other thing is when you have a really experienced head coach like that, while we'll sit here and talk about this and fans will listen to this and be worried about it, there's not going to be much that he hasn't seen. I thought that was funny yesterday when he was talking about the kicker, when he was asked about kicker, and he was like, well, just to be honest, I mean, I haven't had like a solid, the guy every single year. I mean, every year it's been somebody different, for the last 3 years. So that's one of those things with the experience. I'm sure he's ready to roll with a game plan that will complement if it is a TJ Bass or whoever, Obviously, it's going to limit things. It's not going to be the same, because I think you're going to have to take some stuff off the table, but I have a lot of confidence that he would come up with a good game plan.
Now, with Tyler Smith dealing with this hamstring, again, the Cowboys believe it's minor. They're taking a precautionary look at it with the MRI today. But, Nick, when you look at the depth chart, you said something a moment ago that kind of piqued my interest. Would TJ Bass be your number one option? Because they've only got 3 guys, offensive lineman-wise, that are behind the starters. It's Chuma Edoga, who, of course, is banged up in his own right as he left that training camp practice late in Oxnard. Awesome Richards, the 5th-round rookie out of North Carolina. And then the undrafted rookie, TJ Bass, jumping in. And we just talked about Terence Steele as an undrafted free agent who was thrown into the fire early and continued to work to where he is now. I'm not saying that's the ideal situation, but do you feel comfortable if Tyler Smith is unable to go on Sunday night that TJ Bass could fill that void?
I'm going to say no, just because I don't want to throw an undrafted rookie into the fire like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a quick case for each of those 3, though. Chuma Edoga, I feel like, has more of a guard build. He's got that wide set. I don't feel like he's athletic enough to be a tackle. I want to put him in that phone booth and get him working with that wide set, because he's got really good hands. So I want to put him there and see what that looks like. And correct me if I'm wrong, but whenever Tyler Smith went out yesterday, I know we only had like 2 or 3 minutes, but I believe it was Chuma that rotated in.
I didn't see.
Okay, I believe it was, but it was like,
yeah,
it was on the far side.
It was in Denton. Like, it was so far away from
I'm telling you, that has always been the thing. Going back to Valley Ranch, doesn't matter who the head coach is, like, always put the offensive line as far away. I mean, even look at training camp. They always do it like that. Like on the far end where
nobody can see.
There was a time, and during one of the walkthroughs, it was the second from last week of practice, where they worked out kind of in front of where we were. And I just thought it was funny because I remember I went over there and took a picture. You went over there and took a picture. Patrick Walker went over and took a picture just because it was like, it was just the offensive line working out, but it's like they never work out anywhere near where anybody's at, like media-wise. They always make sure that they're way far away, and it has to be by design.
It has to be. It has to be. Really quick to finish up those three. TJ Bass, I really love what he's put together. He had one of the best pass block and run blocking grades in preseason, but granted it was preseason. I really want to give him time because if you cheat his process, that's going to be unfortunate. He has a ton of experience at left guard. He's coming in with that experience at left guard. They've worked him at right guard just to kind of get him used to having both sides, and if he needs to kind of fill in both sides, they have that. But he comes in with a ton of experience from Oregon at left guard. And then don't forget about Austin Richards. Got a ton of work at left guard during training camp. They want to be able to use him at either left tackle or left guard. That's another guy I don't want to throw into the fire that early. So if it comes a situation where if Tyler Smith cannot play on Sunday night, I think Chuma Udoka is probably your best option.
He's the veteran of the group.
I don't feel comfortable about that, but
I think that's the conversation. Is we don't feel comfortable about anything if any one of those top 5 guys go down, but there has to be some sort of backup plan, and it appears that those at least would be the early indications of those backup plans.
And he should be familiar with that stadium, right?
Yeah, he's played there a couple times before, right?
Yeah.
All right. That does it for us here on Talkin Cowboys. These shows fly by in the regular season. But good news.
We're back tomorrow.
You don't have to wait very long.
What?
9 a.m. Central Time is where we will be all week long here on DallasCowboys.com and the various streaming platforms. By the way, stick around. Get your calls in. Get them ready. Get them lined up. 888-855-2297. Cowboys Storyline with Nick Eatman gets underway at 10 a.m. Central Time. So he'll follow us up and do a great job, as always, in the studio.
We start talking a little strategy tomorrow, don't we?
We start talking a little strategy. Tomorrow we will preview the Cowboys defense versus the New York Giants offense tomorrow. So how can that stacked defensive front take down Danny Dimes and the Cowboys, and the Giants offense? And then on Thursday we'll flip it to the offense. Talk about how the Cowboys can have some success on that side of the ball. But for Chris Beam in the back, Isaiah Stanback, John Machota, Nick Harris, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long. We'll see you tomorrow with more Talkin Cowboys.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?